What's going on, people, and welcome to Man Knows Football. You're back here again with Dec and myself, Guni. We're going to be discussing England. Obviously, we made it to the final gas mode. Some of us are still hanging from last night. Oh, man, the scenes last night over in the football factory there, New York City, it was absolutely mental, bro. If you saw the Instagrams, you would see the scenes. The whole bar just erupted when Harry Kane scored the penalty. Final whistle was the same way. Left there full of fucking beer all over my clothes, man. Stinking the place up full of alcohol. Crazy, but it was worth it, man. But how was your celebrations yesterday, though, Dec?
Yeah, it was calm, man. I just watched it in my yard, innit? I'm not overly emotionally invested in England. Not for a few years now. In fact, I'm gonna tell you why. And it involves who we're playing in the final, and it involves Pirlo, Joe Hart, and a dinked penalty. It done me, bro.
No, I feel you.
It done me. So maybe this is the redemption.
This is and the thing is as well, is because the irony is that a lot of us, I think, particular with people of our kind of generation, kind of mid-20s and up, a lot of us were kind of like, it's the Euros, we'll just see how it goes. No, because of that previous disappointment. So to actually see this happening without like overgassing the boys, and you know, it's actually happened. It's actually happened. We're there in the final. But listen, obviously we need to talk about that game coming up, Italy versus England. That is not going to be an easy game. Italy have been fantastic throughout the tournament. You can go back to our previous videos. Me and Dec were actually saying very early into the tournament that Italy were looking like favourites to us. So it's no surprise to either of us that they are here. But let's see how England can beat Italy in this game, Dec. I want to start with one thing that I saw, Italy versus Spain, that was quite interesting to me. Italy did not like the press at all in the midfield. And we saw a lot of Route 1 football. They were playing balls over the top because they couldn't handle the press in the middle. So that was a big indicator for Gareth Southgate really to be looking at going into this final. Dec, what do you reckon?
100%. I think it was the first time in the whole tournament probably that Italy weren't in control of a game and they looked uncomfortable. My only worry is, can England replicate what Spain did? Now, Spain's big strength, you got Busquets and Pedri. Now, they didn't put a foot wrong for the whole pretty much 120 minutes between them. And Spain won that midfield battle like comfortably. And Jorginho, people are talking about him as that player of the tournament. Verratti, one of the best midfielders in the world. And they got controlled. So you'd sort of look at that and think that's where England need to try and control the game. But in Rice and Phillips, don't get me wrong, they've both been brilliant. But are they those kind of players? They're not Busquets and Pedri. So I don't think we can do what Spain did. Because I think Spain just lacked a striker. I think that's probably why they didn't go through. They weren't very clinical up top. They dominated large parts of the game. Squandered a lot of chances. But yeah, for sure, the press, England have got the players to press. I don't think they've got the players to just dominate the football for 90, 120 minutes like Spain did.
Yeah.
But they've definitely got the players to get in Italy's faces. I think England have got more legs than Italy. So I think they can keep the tempo high. And just get the ball to Sterling. Just get the ball to Sterling at the moment because he's just on fire.
Yeah, he just seems to be making everything happen. Shout out Sterling, man. Listen, from the mainstream media ain't giving him the props he deserves. Us little channels and little spaces, we got to do it, man. Do you know what I mean? He's been absolutely brilliant this tournament. Absolutely been England's player of the tournament for me so far. We'll come on to Sterling. Yeah, we're gonna come on to Sterling in a bit because I want to do that brother some justice. You see what I'm saying? But it's so pretty much similar to what I was saying before. So in terms of like that midfield, I do agree with you. We've really got to go in there looking at, I hate to be the person to say this, but we've got to have more legs than them in the midfield, 100%. We've got to be, stamina's got to be on point. We've got to be pressing them consistently. But the thing is that comes with that is we got to be good with the ball. We can't be just
100%.
giving away the ball. Yeah, we've got to be able to just recycle the ball and just be wise with how we use it, man. Because if we're going to give away possession to a team like that in the midfield who thrive with the ball in possession, then we're going to have problems.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the guy down there underneath you, Mason Mount, I think if he starts, he's probably the key. We need to get him on the ball for one. But for two, he can't give Jorginho a minute. If he plays, obviously he's going to be the one in front of Rice and Phillips. So it's going to be his job to just smother Jorginho. Because I think that's where Italy struggled against Spain for large parts of the game. A lot of stuff, they like to go through him. They've gone through him a lot of this tournament. And against most teams, because they've dominated, they've been able to just get him in areas where he's a smart player. Obviously, he struggled a bit in the Premier League physically, but this kind of football suits him. He's a really clever player, puts himself in good positions, makes great decisions with the ball, very rarely puts a foot wrong with the ball at his feet. But he will not like Mason Mount up his arse for 90 minutes.
Absolutely not. Do you think Mace is going to have to do a similar job to what Dani Olmo did in the previous game?
100%. I mean, if we get an Olmo performance from Mason Mount, we could win the game comfortably because he was tremendous. He impressed me a lot. That's like the making of him. I think that's probably the biggest game of his career. Stepped up, and he was unbelievable the other night. Probably the one Spain player along with Pedri that will come off head held high, but especially gutted to go out because he was one of the best players on the pitch by a mile. So yeah, if we get a similar role, a similar performance from Mount, that'll be massive.
Oh, absolutely. So in terms of formation, do you think that we should still stick with the back four? I think I personally think we should. I think anything outside of that is kind of rightly or wrongfully sort of cowering to Mancini a little bit. I think we've shown enough in this competition that we should be confident with what we can do in ourselves instead of worrying too much about the opponent. And I think a back four would be that statement to say, all right, cool, we're not afraid of you, we're going to go for goals. We're not trying to take this to extra time.
No, 100%. I think if Spinazzola was fit, I think you might look at maybe changing it. But with that big danger eliminated, don't get me wrong, Emerson's decent, but you're not going to get the same from him. No. So I think you play back four. Kyle Walker's got all the attributes to completely nullify Insigne out on that left-hand side. We know he's a tricky little player, but
yes,
Kyle Walker's got the speed on him. He's got the physicality on him.
But can I say something about that? And I'm not criticizing Kyle Walker because he did have a good game. He has fantastic recovery pace, but my argument is, especially with defenders, is that when you rely too much on recovery pace, it shows a lack of defensive intelligence.
It means you've done something wrong.
Exactly.
It means if you're recovering, it means you're recovering from, and it's not always him. Sometimes it's the positional awareness of the players around him. Maybe John Stones going too high. There was big pockets in Kyle Walker and John Stones' area, which I can't remember his name, but the little young guy for Denmark, he had a good game. And he exploited it quite well at times. So yeah, that'd be the one worry, and that's where you maybe rein Phillips in a little bit, and they become more, sits alongside Rice a little bit more and plugs that gap a little bit, because that's still going to be where they try and play. They're going to try and play through out to Insigne and then bring the forwards in, whoever they start with, through him. So. But yeah, I think if Kyle Walker gets adequate midfield cover, he can nullify Insigne. He's got all the attributes to do that.
Absolutely.
So I wouldn't. And I think if you go Kyle Walker in the back three, you're probably just inviting Insigne further forward into the pit, into a more of a dangerous area. Yeah. Exactly. So you can play higher with the four, keep him out wide on the halfway line, keep him away from the strikers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that'd be my game plan: nullify Insigne and Jorginho.
Yeah,
But then you've got to be
definitely.
careful about Verratti as well.
In a game like this, I just want to talk about a little bit further up the field. In a game like this, obviously the past 2 games we've seen Harry Kane play in the position that we've wanted him to play. Obviously, he's always been named as a striker, but his role earlier in the tournament looked like he was coming back and crowding the midfield, which is something that a lot of us didn't like. This is a game where potentially chances may come few and far between, purely because of Italy's defense and their experience in defense. We all know the Italians have that reputation of being stellar defenders. You get me? So I think it's even more important that Harry Kane maintains his position in this game. I don't really want to see him dropping too far back, to be honest. We are going to need to keep at least a man or two forward.
Yeah, 100%. You just risk overcrowding as well. If Kane comes deep and you've got Mount playing, Jorginho and Verratti are going to be occupying that sort of deep space in Italy's midfield. So you're just going to get overcrowding. Kane's going to be coming, then he's going to sort of drift wide and drift into sort of wing back territory to try and get the ball, because the Mason Mount Jorginho area is going to be occupied. So he's going to go wandering even further away from goal. See, I thought he still dropped deep at times against Denmark, but I think he did it right. He dropped deep, he spun, and we got good runners. Obviously, the goal came from him coming deep. He came deep, picked it up, released it quickly, and he had runners, and that's what I think it suits when Saka plays, because Saka and Sterling will get in behind. It didn't work as much when the likes of Sancho played. Sancho likes to get the ball from deeper.
He's not a player that,
it's not in behind. He wants the ball to feet, so it doesn't work. But what he did do is he didn't do it too much. He sort of did it when he needed to, but then he was in the box. So again, Harry Kane's too good a player to just say, go and be in the box and just wait for stuff to happen.
Yeah, of course.
But he's got to know. He's just got to be smarter with it, because I think sometimes he gets frustrated, like all strikers do. If you're not seeing the ball, especially when you're that good and you know you can influence a game, if you're not getting the ball, that's when you do go looking for it. But he's just got to remember, just think back to the last 2 games. Think about your goals, think about how you got your goals, and just do more of that. Put yourself in the areas, and it'll come.
No, exactly. Now, are you gonna? I mean, to ask whether you're gonna have Sterling in your lineup for the next game is just a ridiculous question. But on the other flank, I'm not gonna lie to you. I've been very much impressed by Saka. I mean, I've always liked Saka, but this tournament, I feel that he stepped up and he's even put in a case to start ahead of Jadon Sancho quite comfortably. Purely, and that's not a disrespect to Sancho. It's just the differences in styles of football, like he was describing. But nonetheless, Saka, for someone that's so young, he's just that kind of player where I've just seen him thrown in every situation.
That's what I love about him.
Still manages to pull something out of the bag. He still puts in a performance. He's a special talent, him.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, you look at I think 20, 25 minutes, maybe the first half an hour, he struggled a little bit. Maybe that was just, I mean, it's clearly the biggest game of his career. Maybe it was just a bit of sort of settling the nerves. But what I liked about him and what impresses me the most is he doesn't hide. Never. Even when he made a few bad touches, a couple of under-hit passes or whatever, but he didn't shy. He didn't go, right, I'm just going to remove myself from the game for 10 minutes. Because I think that's when you can then just get lost and disappear for the rest of the game. He kept trying, and it didn't come off for a little bit, but then he grew into the game, and I think that's the mark of a top talent. And then, like I say, I've always admired his decision making. I think that's what separates really good youngsters from like the elite youngsters. You see the decision making early on, which is a rare thing to see in football. And once he settled, he started making the right decisions, getting in more dangerous areas, and his run his run for the goal was perfect. It's exactly what he's in the team for. And Sterling can get in behind, but that off the ball run that Saka did, we don't have too many of them in the team. It's not a Grealish run. It's not maybe a Rashford and Saka. That's who you're going to get that run off. And I think when Kane's at his best, that's what he needs. I think we spoke about it in the first pod that we did, saying sort of England didn't have a Heung-min Son to make those runs in behind.
Yeah, did say that. You said
but
that.
I think in Saka we might have that. And I think that's why when Saka's played, it's no coincidence. All right, yesterday was a bit of pressure and whatnot, but he's been really good, and we put in good performances. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if he starts. I'd be happy if he started. I won't feel nervous. I won't feel like we made a mistake. And that just speaks volumes to how he's done in the tournament and how his career is going so far.
Facts. Now, let's talk about the man on the other side, Raheem Sterling. It's hard to find what he's doing wrong currently.
Nothing.
He just seemed every time he picks up the ball, it's this confidence that he has. You see, when Raheem has that confidence and he just feels that he can beat anyone, he can literally beat anyone.
And he said it. Go on.
No,
I was just going to say, he said it. I don't remember when he said it, but he said, when I play for England at Wembley, like, I'm going to score. Like, that's his home. I'm pretty sure he's got it tattooed on the back of his leg. Himself as like a little boy looking up at Wembley. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he does. Obviously, that's home to him. And he's playing like he's at home. He's playing like he's back with his mates, just oozing confidence, just enjoying his football.
Yeah.
And it's refreshing to see. I read it on Twitter earlier today, and it was a very good point. He thrives, I think, in Pep's system, but he plays a certain way. Late runs into the box, puts himself in really good goal-scoring areas in the box to capitalise on De Bruyne crosses, spills, cutbacks, etc. But that sort of dribbling Sterling that we're seeing, beating players, coming inside, firing shots off, going down the outside. Someone said they feel like they're watching this Liverpool Sterling when they're watching him in this tournament.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I feel like I'm watching that Sterling again. The one.
And as soon as I read it, I agreed with it. He just shackles her off, and he's just said from game one, I'm putting this team on my back and we're going. And he's done it every game. I think he's been involved in pretty much every goal we've scored. I think I read he's been involved in every winning goal, whether he scored it, assisted it, or won the penalty or whatever. And I think player of the tournament so far.
No, absolutely.
I think unless Jorginho pulls out a man of the match performance and Italy win, I think whoever wins it, I think you're looking at Jorginho or Sterling now for player of the tournament.
Right.
But Sterling's in the driving seat for me. He's been pretty much man of the match in all of our games. Impressed in every game, contributed a goal or whatever in every game that we've scored in. So I think Southgate's fully justified. And I think most people didn't have him in the team, which I see some people sort of saying, oh, yeah, no one wanted Sterling in the team. But I don't think you can blame people because everyone was going on form. Everyone picks the team on form. Like, let's not be stupid and obtuse.
Yeah.
Everyone picks the team before the tournament based on the season that we've just watched. And he wasn't the Sterling that we've seen for the last 4 or 5 years. But having said that, Southgate stuck faith with him because he's always been the performer for England in the qualifiers, in friendlies, whatever. He's always performed. And I think his goal record in his last 20, 25 games, he scored 19 goals. So it didn't surprise me. I wouldn't have been surprised if he did start. I wouldn't have been surprised if he didn't. I wasn't surprised that he did start, and he's undroppable. He made himself undroppable from game one.
Absolutely. You did mention another player that is in contention for player of the tournament. Player I know very well, Jorginho. So I wanted to say, segmenting onto our midfield, who would you start in that midfield to nullify that Jorginho threat? Again, we've got there's a few candidates. There's you've got Mace, you've got Declan Rice, you've got Calvin Phillips. But I think it's going to take a different type of intelligence to be able to keep up with this man's thinking during the game. Because you see, the thing is although he ain't slow, he's slow with his legs. Up here, he's a lot quicker. And sometimes with players like that, you just end up chasing shadows. So who would be your main man for that job?
I think Mount. To be honest, I don't think there's too much we can do. You might say Henderson. I think that he's the only one that you look at that could come in, but not played a lot of football. He's looked good, don't get me wrong. He's looked very good in the little cameos that he's come on for. But I worry about his fitness, his sharpness overall from it starting a game. Bellingham's not started a game yet, so you're not going to throw Bellingham in the deep end. Although he could potentially, he's got all the talent to go and have a stormer. But I think that'd be naive. That'd be a stupid move to throw him in there. And I think because Jorginho plays at the base, you're not going to play Henderson in the sort of number 10 position and say stick on Jorginho. So it kind of only leaves Mount, but I don't want it to seem like I'm just saying, oh, Mount by default, because I think Mount's a very intelligent player as well. So I think if that's the role that Southgate wants him to do, I think that would be clever to sort of pin him on him and say, when you've got the ball, go and express yourself. But when you haven't got the ball, you're up his arse. He doesn't breathe. The game does not flow through him. That's your responsibility. Don't worry about anyone else. Forget about Verratti. Forget about the fullbacks. Don't worry about if Insigne's coming inside. Do not let the play. Exactly. Do not let Jorginho dictate play. And I think he's more than capable. I think he's got the physical edge on Jorginho. I assume he's aware of Jorginho. I don't think he was really in the team much when Jorginho was.
But I mean,
he's playing with each other now, don't they? So they're obviously aware of each other. But then, so that might play into Jorginho's hands. But he can't really do anything if Mount sticks to his job. Jorginho hasn't got the physical attributes to keep evading him and to keep darting around the pitch and picking up space. I think Mount physically can track him around the pitch all game. So it'd be Mount. I think you've just got to stick with the three. They've got you this far. If Henderson was to come in, it wouldn't be for me to go and play that far upfield on Jorginho. Mount's the only one. None of the attackers, I think, can do that job better than Mount. You're not going to bring Rashford or Sancho in and say, sit on Jorginho. That'd be dumb.
No, absolutely.
I think Mount's very capable. I don't think he's had the best tournament, but I think he's done what he needs to do. He's kind of just had to be there as a little bit of a link man. Obviously, we've got more creators sort of than what he's trusted with at Chelsea. I think he's sort of got a bit more license to be a bit more of a creator at Chelsea.
Yeah.
But he's not put a foot wrong. He's not lit the tournament up, but he's not been poor. So he's more than capable of doing the job. Well, what would you say? You got to go for Man, aren't you, surely?
Yeah, I'd have to agree, because this is more of a case of, it's like you said, it's because Jorginho is the deepest man in the midfield. It's about finding that midfielder who is sort of the furthest man forward and who can actually play that role effectively as well. So Mason Mount does fit that criteria in terms of that all-roundness that I speak about.
Yeah.
On Mason Mount, it will serve him well to the T. Does he have the energy to stick to that job all game? Absolutely. I think he does. Hopefully, the 90 minutes plus extra time in the last game didn't take out too much on him. But I still got faith Mace can do it. And in terms of, and the thing is, in terms of recycling possession that deep in their half, you know Mason Mount can find the pass as well. So now that also brings into question, are we going to go with the high press and press their defense as well as their midfield?
I think you've got to press them to a degree, 100%, because, like you say, Italy's, especially in the midfield, they've got unbelievable ball players. If you don't press and Verratti and Jorginho get any sort of half decent time on the ball, they're going to punish you. If they're at the races, they're going to punish you. So I think you press them, and then you probably see. I think Bonucci and Chiellini, right? Super old school style, no nonsense defenders, but I think they're both kind of underrated at how good they are at football, at actual playing with the ball at the feet, especially Bonucci.
Yeah,
that they can both break the lines. They can fizz a ball straight past the midfield, straight into Insigne's feet, or
I'd say
that's top.
I'd say that's more so Bonucci's
than Chiellini.
Yeah, I'd
100%.
say that's what he's much better at.
Yeah,
and in terms of pure defending, it's Chiellini all day.
Yeah. So for me, I'd be looking at setting pressing traps to get the fullbacks on the ball. Obviously, you're not worried about Spinazzola because, unfortunately, like I feel awful for him because he was one of the best players of the tournament. But it's good for England. So yeah, I'd be trying to nullify the midfield and I'd be trying to force it wide. Try and keep the fullbacks on the ball. Play off them. See if they make mistakes, which they probably will. Obviously, Emerson's not played too many minutes in the tournament, so he's not overly sharp. And just get at him like that. Because I think that sort of box of the two centre-backs and the two deeper midfielders, if they get spaced, they'll kill you.
Yeah.
So that's where I'd be doing. But you don't want to go too heavy because I think that's where, like against Denmark, Stone stepping out, Walker probably playing a bit higher than he did for most of the rest of the tournament. Obviously, we've been playing as a right centre back. That's where we left those pockets. And I think when we left too many spaces, we looked vulnerable. We looked really vulnerable against Denmark. So if we leave ourselves that vulnerable against Italy, you're going to get punished even more. So that's what I'd do. I'd force it to the fullbacks and look for mistakes there. Mason Mount nipping in dangerous areas. Like you say, if the fullbacks got it, their first thing is, can I get it to Jorginho? Can I get it to Verratti?
Yeah.
And that's where if Mount switched on and nips in ahead and we win the ball in dangerous areas then, and then you've got Mount and the front three 20, 30 yards out looking to punish.
No, it makes sense. I wanted to say on the other side as well for Italy, they've got another danger man that I think we are not giving much respect to here. Chiesa. Deadly. And I've been surprised because he's been a bit of a bench option this tournament for Italy. Yeah. But every time he's come off the bench, he has made the difference. Now, I'm not too worried about him in the sense that our fullbacks this tournament have been brilliant, to be fair. And I think because I know Chiesa, he floats in at Juve, they play him on either flank sometimes. So I don't know. They might put him on the left, they might put him on the right this time, whatever Mancini fancy. But I think on either side, we've got enough about us to keep him quiet. My concern is that space in the middle of our in front of our defense and just behind our midfield. And the one player that I'm worried about if I see in that lineup is Locatelli, because he is very good in that space, in and around that space. It's almost as if he sniffs when the danger's coming. It's almost like it's similar to that late run in the box, in it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, he knows when to be there. So that's another position I feel that we really need to be switched on, because you've also got Insigne as well, who's a dangerous distance shooter. You know, so being aware of that space and having somebody just consistently screening there, I think needs to be key as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think those two channels in between Shaw and Maguire, and then Stones and Walker, I think that's where Italy can. I think that's where any team can hurt this England team.
Yeah,
it's where Denmark did it, occupying those spaces, and I think Stones likes to come out. So I think that's where you can exploit him. If Stones and Walker get caught too high up the pitch, and then Harry Maguire, I think that's sort of his one weakness, if he's, so to speak, if you can get him turning, because if he's playing facing the ball, he's brilliant. If you get him turned and running at his goal, again, it's what I always say about these bigger central defenders. You've got to turn them. You've got to get them running at their goal, and that's where they don't look good. And I think that's where Chiesa and Insigne could cause problems. If Italy can get their midfield high enough and exploit those areas. So I think that's why we need to press the midfield, because we need to create as much of a gap between the centre midfielders and Chiesa and Insigne, just to not allow them to play in those pockets. And if we do that, we should. We've got such a good chance. Like, I think it's a 50-50 game. Obviously, I'm going to side with England, being English, but I think just both teams have kind of grew into the tournament. I remember when we spoke after England's first game, and I was a bit worried because the first two performances weren't great. And I said, obviously, if we were going to do well, we needed to grow into the formation, and we just needed to grow and get more cohesive as the tournament went on. And I think that's exactly what we've done. And we've kind of, game by game, we've built this sort of almost an air of invincibility about us, where we feel like...
I want to say something on that, but I still feel that there's more to come. I don't feel like we've hit top gear at all.
No, 100%. I mean, yesterday wasn't a great performance. We kind of regressed back into like the early group stage. Yesterday, maybe it was nerves, maybe it was whatever. We got the job done, but yeah, there's still more to come. But I think Italy did exactly the same thing. I think you've got the two teams that grew as the tournament went, and they sort of, again, I'll go back to the other pod we did. And I said, momentum can just do so much for you in tournament football, especially when it's played within such a close period of time, when the games are just one after the other. Momentum can take you all the way to the final. And I think that's what's happened with Italy and England. They've just picked up this momentum. They've got good results. I think the Germany result was absolutely key for England. And I think just the whole group stage for Italy just sort of bred this sort of invincibility about both teams. And they both just look destined for the final from as soon as the knockout stage started, I thought.